Alright, it's morning. I had 5 hours of sleep. Wonders of being a parent of a teenager. But the sun's up and it's already kind of hot outside, so I'm not going back to sleep. So, I was thinking about the Hall of Fame this morning and how Rogie Vachon should have been in it years ago. Years ago. And Pat Quinn really should have been in there before he passed away. Pat Quinn had the numbers to be in the Hall of Fame years ago, and it must be a Pat thing because Pat Burns went through the same thing. And it's almost criminal how some players and coaches and builders are excluded while they lower the bar to let a guy like Pavel Bure in. I love Bure, but his stats aren't Hall of Fame like. Yes, his career was shortened by injuries, but when they let him in, and it's the Cam Neely thing too, and now Eric Lindros, I don't know, you're excluding some guys who played a lot longer, who had more Stanley Cups, and it's an odd thing, but and by more, I mean more than zero, because Bure and Lindros both never won the Stanley Cup. I think they both had only one final. I know Lindros only had one final. Lindros, of course, in the hockey book I'm looking at, had just gone to the Leafs. See that smile? Said in an interview yesterday, he said that he wished he'd come to the Leafs in better shape, that he wished that he hadn't been so banged up from all the previous injuries. And then he's been retrofitting this whole Quebec thing. I remember when Lindros refused to play for the Nordiques. And he never said publicly, oh, I would play for Quebec if it wasn't for the owner. That's what he says now. Pretty convenient he's saying that now that he's in the Hall of Fame. And he was saying it just shortly before he got in the Hall of Fame. It's like somebody went to him and said, hey, Eric, the reason you're not in the Hall of Fame is that shit you pulled on the Nordiques. All right, well, it was the owners, not the team. It's not that I didn't want to play in Quebec. I just, it was a good hockey market, but no. No, the disdain he showed that sweater on draft day said it all. If it's an owner thing, you put the damn sweater on. He didn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he went backstage and threw it in the garbage. Anyways, well, he's retrofitting the past and making everything a reboot. Apparently he can do reboots in real life too. And now he's a fantastic guy and everybody loves him. Wasn't the case in the 90s. This Hall of Fame tie-in, this is all about after the cap. See, cap era makes sudden impact. The Toronto Maple Leafs were a pretty damn good team in the early 2000s. How? They overspent. Give everybody money. There's an arrivals and departures bit on this page here. Let's see who arrives in Toronto for this season. The first were they would miss the playoffs for forever. Okay, they made the playoffs once since the lockout. This is their players they added: Jason Allison, Carlo Koliakovo, Alexander Havanoff. I don't even know if Havanoff really played for them. Eric Lindros, Jeff O'Neill, Alex Steen as a rookie, Michael Tellqvist as a rookie, Stefan Kronwall as a rookie. Departures: Drake Barahowski, not a big deal there. Tom Fitzgerald, okay. Ron Francis, oh. Calle Johansson, Trevor Kidd, no big deal. Brian Leach, might be a big deal. Brian Marchment, huge physical presence on the blue line. Alex McGillney, on the downside, sure, but it's a player. Joe Nieuwendyk, much the same. Owen Nolan, much the same. Robert Reichel went to the... did he retire after that? Or yeah, I think he was... Yeah. Michael Renberg and Gary Roberts. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of veterans. And that's how the Leafs did what they did. They had a lot of veteran talent. Interestingly enough, too, the coach was Pat Quinn. With an Olympic gold medal and World Cup title, Quinn has had more success on the international ice than in the NHL. That's kind of snippy, considering he did pretty well as a coach for Vancouver. He would do well as a coach for Toronto. And, yeah, I think that's a pretty snippy way of putting it. But it's right here. One of the most depressing ironies for the Toronto Maple Leafs is that they were arguably the NHL organization that least needed a lockout and the one that will be most adversely affected by it. After all, the Leafs had the biggest competitive advantage, their ability to recruit unrestricted free agents with big dollars taken away from them. They haven't drafted and developed players wisely the way the Philadelphia Flyers have. They don't have the recent track record of success that belongs to the Red Wings. And in the short term, their current contracts don't give them the salary cap freedom afforded to many other teams in the NHL. To make matters worse, the Leafs are the NHL's #1 revenue team, which means they're effectively paying teams such as Florida for taking Gary Roberts and Joe Nieuwendyk away from them. But all is not lost. The Leafs can still use their financial clout to hire the best off-ice personnel money can buy. Okay, now I'm ready to start laughing. They've beefed up their scouting staff, and respected scout Dave Morrison is assuming more control over amateur scouting. They've taken low-risk, high-reward chances on players such as Eric Lindros, Jeff O'Neill, and Jason Allison, all of whom aim to reestablish themselves as elite-level NHLers while realizing lifelong dreams of playing in Toronto. I'm sorry, it's nothing against those guys. It's just that was so sunshiny and rosy, and I know what happened. We all know what happened. They missed the playoffs. Also, GM John Ferguson was instrumental in moving the American League farm team to Toronto and paying Paul Maurice's $200,000 per season to coach the AHL's Toronto Marlies. Former Flames GM Craig Button has been a trusted mentor to Ferguson. Oh fuck. And the Leafs continue to pour resources into drafting and developing an area in which they have been woefully inadequate since the league expanded to 12 teams, 1967. Oh my god. But the short-term growing pains will be substantial as the Leafs face an overwhelming rebuilding job over the next couple of years. Couple of years. Although it says the next couple years. Next couple of years. Come on, guys. It's 2 letters. Make it sound right. Wow. The bottom line, the Maple Leafs days as an elite team are likely over in the short term, and things could get ugly while they adjust to the realities of the NHL's New World Order. Wow. That's just crazy. I didn't mean to laugh like that. It just spontaneously happened. I read it, it comes out of my mouth, and then I laugh because, you know, it's basically the Canucks. The Canucks were at near the top at that point, and then they nosedived coming out of the salary or the salary cap era, and the only thing that was faster than their dive was Toronto's. Because the Canucks had the down year in 05-06, and then 06-07 arrived, and Luongo time. Yeah, Kluche was a little... Yeah, I remember that. Kluche played for Klagenfurter in, I'm probably butchering that, but it's Austria, and had a 1.94 goals against average there, so, you know, maybe Klagenfurter, maybe that was his sweet spot, maybe if they'd given them an expansion franchise. And then they get into prospects. I'll do more prospect stuff during the summer, but it's funny to read the top 10 prospects on each team and then see them give a grade to the team. Like, is this a good list? Is it a bad list? Is this a good franchise of developing players or bad? And they're wrong a lot of the time. They're absolutely wrong. And you can see guys in that top 10 list that became steals later. Okay, but guys who are not in the Hall of Fame, there's actually a website called notinhalloffame.com. And it gets into every sport, which I think is excellent. Whoever's actually in charge of this site does a fantastic job. All right, so hockey. And I'll just touch on some of the names in here that I agree should be in the Hall, and I'm shocked are not in the Hall of Fame. Sorry, the site's just rather big on having its pop-up show up. Okay, so number 1's Lindros. Well, he got in yesterday. Number 3's Makarov. He got in yesterday. Number 2, though, is Don Cherry. And you forget Don Cherry's not in the Hall of Fame. Don Cherry should be in the Hall of Fame. In Canada, there's nobody more famous hockey-related than Don Cherry. Yes, most of us at this point think he's fallen out of touch. There are people who absolutely hate him. I don't hate him. I just don't listen to his opinion like I did 20 years ago because he's still seeing the game how it was 20 years ago for the most part. But he should be in the Hall. Baffling to me he's not in the Hall of Fame. Paul Kariya, if he had played another 2 seasons, he's in the Hall of Fame. Mark Recchi, absolutely criminal. The Mark Recchi with his 3 Stanley Cups and years upon years of fantastic production. And he was a big part of the reason the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011. And it was a big hole in their lineup when he left. So I don't understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame either. Theoren Fleury. I think Theoren Fleury's not in the Hall of Fame in part because of his personal issues and off-ice issues, which is a shame because those were personal demons based on a past that I'm not getting into here. But he belongs there. Alex McGillney, I'd say you put McGillney in there for the fact that he scored over 1,000 points. He won a Stanley Cup with Jersey, and he was the first young Soviet player to come over. Like when the Soviets sent over guys like Kasatonov, Fedosov, Larionov, Makarov, and Krutov, which was the first line for Red Army in the 80s, it looked like a fantastic, wonderful thing. And Sergei Pryakin was sent over. Well, Pryakin was a middle-of-the-road prospect. He wasn't a great player. And that first line from, including the KLM line, that was all over the hill. So the Soviets were not sending us the cream of the crop. When McGillney defected, all hell broke loose because McGillney was, a future star and they knew it. He should be in the Hall just because of the fact he broke that wall down. Pretty much literally broke that iron wall down. Iron curtain, I guess. I was trying to think of it was a term I haven't said it in years and years and decades. Iron curtain, right. Andreychuk is at number 8 on this list. I'd put him higher. Andreychuk for over 600 goals. He scored 20 goals a year, I think 15 years in a row plus. Like, you got to put the guy in the Hall of Fame. Number 9 is Bernie Nichols. I would not put Bernie Nichols in the Hall of Fame. Just personally. He has 1,000 points. He scored 150 in a season, which is how he got 1,000 points. He did score 70 goals in the season. But I don't know if he ever scored even 50 again. Like, it was this weird, he had 70 goals, 150 points. It was the first year Gretzky was in LA. It was like every team went, got to shut down Gretzky, and they forgot all about Bernie Nichols. Number 10 is Jeremy Roenick. I cannot believe they rate Jeremy Roenick after Bernie Nichols. I am stunned that Jeremy Roenick belongs in the Hall. He is arrogant. He says things that are stupid. When they did the salary cap coming out of and again this ties into this book here. When the salary cap was brought in and they sat him down and they asked him, well, this salary cap's really going to kind of screw entry-level contracts. It's going to screw the young kids. And he goes, well, I made my money. And he meant it. I think there was like a moment like they waited to see if he was joking and they realized he wasn't, so they moved on. But yeah, Roenick wasn't kidding. Mike Richter, I can understand why Mike Richter's not in the Hall of Fame, but at the same time, he won the Stanley Cup in '94, and he was a huge part of the reason they won the Cup was '94. Glenn Healy notwithstanding. John Leclerc, I don't know if I'd put Leclerc in there. Pierre Turgeon, I don't know if Turgeon was never a game breaker. He was good. He has 1,327 career NHL points, but man, the last 5 years of his career was brutal. Claude Provost, never saw him play. I would say based on the stats, based on his Stanley Cup totals, the fact he's got, All-Star appearances and the most Stanley Cups of anybody who's not in the Hall of Fame, I'd say sure. Tom Barrasso, I couldn't stand him. Do I think he belongs in the Hall? Well, he won 2 Stanley Cups, and he was a damn good goalie at certain points in his career. I couldn't stand him personally, but that's me. Paul Henderson, I'm in the minority. I was not born when the miracle, of 72 happened, so I honestly think the 72 miracle, that's 44 years ago now, it's too late. If you're going to put Henderson in, it should have been in the 80s for that feel-good. You could have had, more of a feel-good thing. It would just reek of, we don't have anybody else, so we're going to put Henderson in. Cujo, yes. Cujo, based on the fact that he built up all those wins and he never played on a dominant hockey team. He played on good hockey teams. He never played on a dominant hockey team. Not once. He played for the Blues. He played for the Oilers. He played for the Leafs. Then he went to the Wings. By the time he went to the Wings, he was on the downside. That might hurt his standing in terms of getting in, because he was supposed to get the Wings to the Cup and he didn't. But he had a lot of wins, and he battled, and he won. He played a lot of games. Rick Martin, I didn't see the 70s Rick Martin. I didn't see the 70s Buffalo French Connection. I know Gilbert Perreault's in there. I don't know if Rick Martin, if I put him in there. Keith Tkachuk, he played for a long time, and I love Keith Tkachuk. It's borderline for me. J.C. Tremblay, I never saw him play. I'll only go to the second page, because anything past that is going to be whoever. There are a couple of guys I've seen on the second page that I bitch about a lot, so we're going to go to the second page just so I can say that. Rogie Vachon's in here at number 21. He got in yesterday. Dave Taylor, yes. Dave Taylor played a long time, and he was a very important player wherever he played. Mike Vernon, Mike Vernon was never really the best goalie in the league. He was very good. And he won a cup with the Wings. He wasn't the reason the Wings won the cup, but he wasn't the reason they lost, because they didn't. Bobby Smith, I love Bobby Smith. I've got his rookie card somewhere around here. He's one of my favorite players. He's not a Hall of Famer. Doug Wilson, maybe. John Van Beesbrook, no. Guy Carbonneau, no. Kevin Lowe. For the Oilers dynasty, maybe. Chris Osgood. Osgood's numbers are fantastic. They stand out. They have the cup wins. And you got to look and go, well, why isn't he in the Hall? Simple. He went to St. Louis and the Islanders, and he was exposed as being a middle-of-the-road goaltender. In Detroit, he put up good numbers. There was the one year that he won the Stanley Cup, that he was a big part of the reason Detroit won it. But, again, the fact that he played for the Red Wings for so long and he had so many wins that way. Vinny Domfus, no. Gary Suter, maybe for the hit on Gretzky. I might put him in the Hall of Fame for the hit on Gretzky. Maybe. I'm just kidding. Andy Moog. Andy Moog was my favorite goaltender. He built up a lot of wins. He's got cup rings. I know Glenn Healy'd the bench during those cup wins, but he was a big part of the regular season success when Grant Fuhr was emerging. And I still think he was a better goaltender than Grant Fuhr. I honestly never thought Grant Fuhr was better than Moog. I think Fuhr just fit in better with the guys. I've heard a lot of rumors of drug use in the 80s. I don't know what is or isn't true. I know that in the 80s, drug use was really, really common. Really, really excessively common. So, whatever. Maybe Moog was a stick in the mud, so he didn't fit in with the boys. I don't know. Maybe he was the party bus driver. I have no idea. Alex Kovalev, no. Doug Waite, no. Steve Larmer. Larmer is borderline. I wouldn't mind seeing him in there. I mean, his Ironman streak was impressive for the fact that he played a physical game in that Ironman streak. He played, I think it was 965 games in a row. I think that's what it was. Peter Bondurant, no. Ron Hextall, if they'd won in 87, I would say yes. Rick Middleton, I'm surprised Middleton's not in the Hall of Fame. But, Brian Propp, love Brian Propp. He needed to be better for longer to get in the Hall of Fame, and then they get it to Ralph Backstrom, whoever that is. So, yeah, that's my view on who isn't in the Hall of Fame. It's a nice long list. and I'm up to 20 minutes already. This is why I would have a very hard time doing short videos. Basically, it'd just be point form, and it would be rapid fire, and it'd give you whiplash because, you know, you're gonna be like, wait, what did he just say? Wait, what? Because I would have had to do that list like this, and this I wouldn't have been able to look through this. So you know, so that's my view on the beginning of the Leafs' downfall, which was 05-06 coming out of the lockout, and the Hall of Fame. The four guys who went in all belonged in there. Anybody who says it's a weak Hall of Fame, look, Rogie Vachon put up with playing for some really shitty teams after he was in Montreal. He did. The Kings in the 80s were brutal, and he single-handedly got them in games, single-handedly won games. He was a warrior, and he belongs in the Hall. He absolutely does. Lindros, I'm on the fence with Lindros. I would have been fine with them keeping him out. I'm fine with him being in. Not a fan of the guy personally. Like I said, he's retrofitting the Quebec Nordiques thing. Pretty soon it'll be, oh, I wanted to play for Quebec, but the jersey didn't fit. That's where it's going to, you know, and if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. So Johnny Cochran defense, he's off the hook, and Quebec can love him again. Maybe he's hoping Quebec will get a team and he can own it, and not get booed out of the building. And yet the trade to Philly for Lindros made the Colorado Avalanche the Stanley Cup champions years later. So Eric Lindros gave the Colorado Avalanche a Stanley Cup, or 2 or 3. 2. Yeah, it was 2. What else? Makarov belongs in the Hall of Fame because if you have Larionov in there, you have to have Makarov in there. I would be very surprised if Krutov gets in there, only because he only played one NHL season. He showed up. He showed up out of shape in Canucks camp, and there was a big deal made of it here, that he was out of shape, and that, you know, he basically ate his way out of the NHL. Soviet players basically had no freedom. Their entire life was regimented, and some players are going to hate that, and Krutov clearly hated it. So when he was free to do whatever he wanted, eat whatever he wanted, he did it. And while, you know, Larionov didn't do it, Makarov, Fedosov, Kasatonov, none of them did it. Whatever. I mean, I don't blame the guy. Krutov, out of all of the guys who came over, seemed like the one you could most have a beer with. So, you know, I don't begrudge him at all. But he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. And it's too bad, because having the KLM line in the Hall of Fame would be pretty cool, because I remember in the 80s that KLM line was frigging amazing. But it's not a weak Hall of Fame. It's just when you don't have the names they've had over the last few years, it's going to look like it, but they all belong there. They do. And Pat Quinn absolutely belongs there. I don't care what that magazine says. Pat Quinn was a damn good NHL coach. That magazine was written by somebody that either Pat Quinn fired, or Pat Quinn didn't sign an autograph because he was busy at the time. Whatever. Anyways, that's it from me this morning. This is my overtired edition. I'm wearing my Cincinnati Bengals jersey. This way I'm not wearing an NHL jersey of a team that's not the Canucks. I don't want to offend Canucks fans out there. And I'm wearing Colorado Rockies. They're no longer a team that exists in the NHL. They exist in baseball, not with that logo, but I'll just say it's a baseball hat and pretend I'm stupid. And there. So anyways, oh, and as a Bengals fan, I realized last year after they went 8-0 and then they fell apart that I hate myself. For the sports teams I cheer for, I clearly have a lot of self-loathing issues, and being a Bengals fan, yeah. So if you get to this point of the video, a challenge. Coming out of last year's heartbreak in the fucking NFL, I didn't want to be a Bengals fan anymore. For 2 reasons. 1, the Bengals broke my heart, and 2, the players on the Bengals are kind of assholes. So I'm having a hard time finding another team to cheer for. I have the San Diego Chargers, but they're moving, in all likelihood. And the team just seems to have no hope for the future. So I like to have 2 teams to cheer for in any sport. And the Bengals, yeah. It's ironic that I cheer for the Bengals But I don't watch the Lions because these colors are Lions colors. It's even, you know, the stripes. I mean, it's Lions. And yet, I don't have any interest. The Lions played the Stampeders the other night. And I don't care. I don't care about the CFL. And I can't pretend I do. So, anyways, thanks for watching.